the Vice Chancellor of the General Sir John Kotelawala Defence University, Major General Milind Pieris, Conference Chair and Vice Presidents of the ACS and the Dean of the Faculty of Criminal Justice, Professor Jiva Niriella, the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Mangala Vijayasinghe, members of the faculty, distinguished academia, members of the organizing committee, distinguished guests, and most importantly, our students. I am pleased to participate in the inaugural session of the 14th Asian Criminology Conference of this university in collaboration with the Asian Criminology Society. And may I take this opportunity of thanking the conference organizers for inviting me here, as I think it and I consider it a privilege. My dear students, I have learned that the conference hosts a galaxy of criminologists, law professionals, experts and professionals in criminal justice, and scholars and researchers, not only from Sri Lanka, from across other Asian continents and beyond. So, considering the immense interest that has been developed in the run-up to this conference, I have every confidence that there will be some valuable takeaways at the end of this conference, particularly at a time when peace and security in the world is subject to unprecedented threats, to the extent that even a high premium that we would be willing to pay would not secure for us, for humanity, this very precious commodity. My dear students, crime and criminal justice plays a crucial role in maintaining peace, security, and sustainable development within societies. Effective crime prevention, law enforcement, and an efficient judiciary is the raison d'etre of a just and fair society. Criminal justice systems are essential for creating stable and prosperous communities. It is sought to examine, therefore, today, this morning with you, the impact of crime and the role of criminal justice in the context of sustainable development and the maintenance of peace and security. My dear students, sustainable development seeks to meet, what does it seek to meet? It seeks to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to satisfy their own needs. Peace and security, therefore, are vital components of this goal, as they form the very foundation for social, economic, and environmental progress. So, criminal justice, therefore, plays a crucial role in promoting social stability, human rights, and sustainable growth. Crime prevention, you will appreciate, is vital. Peace and security, as I said, are fundamental to create an environment conducive to crime prevention. Now, why do I say that? I say that for a very simple reason. You will agree with me that when people feel safe in their communities, they are more likely to engage in activities such as education, entrepreneurship, and investment in an endeavor to promote development. Now, by addressing, therefore, the root causes of crime, it is possible, I say, to create safer environments that foster economic and social progress. My dear students, you will appreciate that crime can disrupt peace and security within communities. You have seen it all, leading to fear, leading to social instability and economic downturn. We saw that in the last few months or the last year, playing itself out in a substantial manner, the consequences of disruption, particularly of economic disruption. Criminal activities, therefore, such as violence, organized crime, terrorism, and corruption, undermine peace by threatening the safety of individuals and the stability of institutions. It is therefore, you will agree, necessary that we have a robust criminal justice system to prevent and address these problems, ensuring the safety and well-being of all our citizens. Students, it must be always borne in mind that crime and criminal justice are global issues that require international cooperation. We cannot do it alone. Transnational crimes such as drug trafficking, human trafficking, cybercrime, and terrorism often require collaboration between countries to effectively address them. Now, cooperation in sharing information, sharing intelligence, and expertise, you will agree, can lead to a more successful methods of investigations, successful prosecutions, and most importantly, the dismantling of criminal networks. You will also see that social stability is equally important. Without social stability, nothing perhaps is possible. Peace and security, therefore, my dear students, fosters social stability, which we all must agree is essential for sustainable development. It helps communities to function in harmony. It cultivates trust among its members and promotes cooperation to achieve common objectives. So, investing in crime prevention policies is crucial for promoting peace and to promote security. Prevention initiatives can focus on addressing the root causes of crime, such as poverty, such as inequality, such as a lack of education, and social exclusion. By addressing these underlying factors, communities can, through them, reduce the likelihood of criminal activities taking place in the first instance. Let me turn to something else. Let's say something very briefly on economic growth. Economic growth is perhaps equally important. A peaceful and secure environment is important to achieve economic growth. It was not so long ago that we experienced, as I said, the consequences of a near collapse of economic activity in our own country. So economic stability of a country, I would say, is indispensable as it encourages investment, it creates jobs, and contributes to economic development. Now, another aspect that I would like to touch upon is environmental protection, the buzzword of the last 2 years, or perhaps in the last 15 years. Peace and security and environmental protection, you will appreciate, are closely linked. It is well demonstrated in conflict-affected areas where the environment is seriously compromised, where natural resources seriously are exploited. We have seen it in our own scenarios during the conflict of the North. Now, this has led to environmental degradation. The promotion of peace will facilitate, I say, safeguarding the ecosystems and the protection of biodiversity in general. Now, let me turn to the aspect of perhaps the favorite of all, access to justice, particularly for law students, which is an important aspect that you and I must agree cannot be compromised at any cost. Ensuring equal access to justice, my dear students, for all of us is a sine qua non. The elimination of bribery and corruption, promoting human rights, and the fostering of the rule of law is an indispensable must for good governance, for limited government, for democracy. An efficiently functioning justice system based on the rule of law is essential for development, as it provides a framework for ensuring accountability and the maintenance of social order. It is therefore pertinent at this point in time to say a word about law enforcement. You will agree that strong law enforcement institutions are essential for maintaining peace and security. Police forces, investigative agencies, and other law enforcement bodies play a critical role in preventing and combating crime. They are responsible for the apprehension of criminals, the gathering of evidence, and ensuring that perpetrators are held accountable for all their actions. It must also be appreciated in the course of the discussion that an efficient criminal justice system is necessary to ensure that individuals accused of crime have the benefit of due process and fair treatment. Now, that's another important aspect that we must take cognizance of. Now, this includes access, as I said before, to legal representation, to a fair trial, and appropriate punishment for offenders. The punishment must be commensurate naturally with the crime you committed. Isn't it time then that we had principles of punishment? Can we think about it? Yes, we must. Now let me turn to again to the aspect of sustainable development. Sustainable development, peace and security, as I said, are interconnected overall, and they complement each other. So by promoting security, investing in justice systems, and by giving priority to peace building, a more inclusive and sustainable future can be assured for all of us, my dear students. It is not difficult to see that to do anything otherwise can surely hinder sustainable development by impeding economic growth, deterring investment, and eroding public confidence in institutions. Public confidence in institutions cannot be lost, because to lose public confidence in institutions is to lose ourselves as a community. Why? Because it diverts resources away from productive activities and creates an environment of uncertainty, making it nearly impossible or perhaps difficult for communities to thrive, to carry on, to progress. So effective criminal justice systems, therefore, help maintain law and order, creating an enabling environment for sustainable development initiatives to succeed. In September of 2015, you will recall, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development by adopting Resolution 70/1. Now, the 2030 Agenda comprises 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets that provide a universal framework for the realization of human rights and environmental sustainability across a canvas of activities. The discussion, therefore, today's discussion, is timely because multiple SDGs address issues relating to crime, justice, and security. My dear friends, implied in the SDGs is the notion that enhancing the capabilities of developing countries to combat various forms of crime and promote the rule of law are now a policy priority for the global community. Now that must be taken on board seriously. Now, to achieve this vision, therefore, there is today, particularly in the United Nations, a clarion call for what? For a culture of shared responsibilities. A culture of shared responsibilities, collective action, and benchmarking for progress. Progress for what? Progress that requires international development actors who have the capacity to provide expertise and for member states to work together. A togetherness. In other words, work together to exploit our global commons, as we call it. So member states are invited to cooperate with such agencies in designing policy priorities. Now, I can give you perhaps off the cuff a simple example of would be the UNDP and the UNODC, and that's the United Nations Development Program and the United Nations Organization for Drugs and Crime. So I would like to leave you with this thought. I would therefore like to leave you with that thought that today there is collective action, shared responsibility, which has been emphasized upon, so that no one, as we say in the UN, is left behind, and we can build a planet, build back better the planet we lost just 3 years ago to a pandemic. Let me now, having said that, turn to another group of activists who are present with us here today, and that is the academia. The globalizing tendencies of the international development system must be acknowledged by academia and particularly criminologists. But so must the substantial body of international evidence, which seems to suggest that various forms of crime threaten the health, prosperity, and happiness of many residents of the global south. Now, why do I talk of the global south? You might ask yourself the question as to why I might make reference to the global south. I do it simply for the reason that Sri Lanka chairs the high-level committee of the South-South Cooperation and Triangular Cooperation, which amongst other things deals with the sharing of expertise between the countries of the Southern Hemisphere regarding crime and criminal justice. Now, the global study in 2013 undertaken by the United Nations Organization for Drugs and Crime on homicide found that less developed sub-regions, including Southern Africa, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America, had the highest homicide rates in the world. Now, a report of the World Health Organization also estimates that the combined lifetime prevalence of intimate partner violence and non-partner sexual violence amongst women in almost all low and middle income regions to be higher than high income regions, with a few exceptions, of course. So with a few exceptions, the 50 worst performing countries in Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, which I happened to see recently, were also surprisingly, not so surprisingly perhaps, were from the global south. So you will agree with me that this is not at all an acceptable situation. We need to get out of this. So it is something that we need to seriously work together if we are to substantially improve the situation. Now, in citing this body of evidence, I'm not for a moment suggesting that underdevelopment is at the root of these problems or that they can easily be addressed through the work of development actors or national and local governments. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, many of these problems appear to be, at least on a structural level, attributable in part to the problematic legacies of colonialism, modernization, globalization, neoliberal globalization. So furthermore, we acknowledge that these problems are not unique to developing countries of the global south, and that solutions, if needed, they exist, will not necessarily originate in the global north. Just remember this, that the global north doesn't have the answers to many of our problems. In fact, they are the creators of these problems. Rather, we feel that there is a moral imperative, I say, for criminologists to engage with the SDGs insofar as they provide a valuable framework for addressing these issues in a coordinated and systematic manner. My dear friends, failure to do so means only one thing, and it would mean that the expertise of academic criminologists and scientists remains largely superfluous and inconsequential to development actors. Look around us and we see manifestations of that in large measure. So it is said that there are two primary ways that criminologists can support the 2030 agenda. Firstly, criminologists can actively assist with the design, implementation, and evaluation of projects that support safe, just, and environmentally sustainable societies. Now, this is not to suggest that criminological knowledge alone is sufficient for achieving these outcomes. Not at all. Rather, it must be combined, I say, with the expertise of development actors and aligned with the interests and knowledge of local stakeholders. My dear friends, there is a second school of thought that believe that criminologists can assume a critical role by helping members of the development community and local stakeholders recognize and resist attempts by international organizations and NGOs, sovereign donors, private corporations, and policy entrepreneurs to politicize criminal threats, strategic or political reasons that deviate from or outright conflicts with local government needs. My dear friends, I think I have said enough for you to digest these ideas in the course of your deliberations in the next 2 days. Let me, in conclusion, deal briefly with the challenges and issues we face in our endeavor to engage with crime and criminal justice in our own land, Sri Lanka. While Sri Lanka generally has a lower crime rate compared to many other countries in the region, we continue to grapple with certain criminal activities with consistency. I think the time has come to change that perception, to change those practices if we are to progress. One significant concern is the prevalence of organized crime, including drug trafficking, human smuggling, illegal arms trade, and an exponential increase in economic crime. These activities pose challenges to law enforcement agencies and can have adverse effects on our society. Another issue is the occurrence of violent crimes, such as homicides, assaults, and robberies. It is as if though it is all part of life. That must change. And that change can only come if we adults have failed in that endeavor. Then I think it's time that you young students and young people rose to the occasion to tell us as to how we should tackle these problems. While the overall crime rate has been relatively stable, there have been instances of high-profile crimes that generate public concern. And that is perhaps a very sad reflection of our community. We are aware that efforts to combat crime and ensure justice in Sri Lanka are overseen by the country's criminal justice system, which has a great heritage. However, we cannot live on the laurels of our heritage. We need to respond effectively if we are to put the crime system, the criminal justice system right. However, the system faces some challenges, including delays in the legal process, a backlog of cases, and limited resources for investigations and prosecutions. I come back again really to the question of access to justice. These issues can most times, and perhaps definitely perhaps, lead to a lack of public confidence in the criminal justice system. Ask 9 out of 10 people who walk on the road, what do you think of the criminal justice system? And they will probably turn around to you in despair. That perception must change. And that change, as I said, can come only from you. So in recent years, the government has taken several steps to address these challenges. Efforts to strengthen law enforcement agencies, improve coordination among relevant institutions, and enhance the capacity of the criminal justice system have been initiated and is in progress. However, it is an ongoing progress, and there is still work to be done to ensure an effective and fair criminal justice system in Sri Lanka. And that needs to be done in conjunction with the public, who is part and parcel of the system of criminal justice. After all, the criminal justice system is for the public. My dear friends, all these matters I have placed before you, right, will help you to bear in your own minds, to appreciate that crime and criminal justice are integral components of peace and security and sustainable development. The investment in crime prevention and the better management of criminal justice, you will therefore see, can only result in returning substantial dividends in our quest to create a safer and more prosperous environment for our citizens. Permit me to say a word of encouragement, which I never fail to leave students with, and that is by reminding you that you are special. We have confidence in you because you are the future of Sri Lanka. A chosen few, trustees of the future Sri Lanka, bestowed with the obligation to ensure that you will translate into action the knowledge and skills you would acquire in the course of your academic life for the benefit of the community as responsible citizens. I thank you for inviting me once again to deliver this lecture.